So I got this thing not too long ago. I've made several videos about it before I actually held it in my hand. So spent all this time talking about the hardware. Let's actually talk about the software for once. So I'm going to be reviewing Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I had very mild levels of excitement for this. I have not played any Rabbids games beforehand. I have not played any XCOM games, so if this is just like a watered-down, crappier version of XCOM, I'm not gonna know. So the game opens up with this huge, lengthy cinematic cutscene. You know, for a Nintendo game, this is very cutscene heavy. The explanation they give for the two of them to be together is, as usual, portal through time and space, because you can't have two franchises collide in any other way. Now, I've always been of the opinion that the Mario team, they're not characters, they're mascots. They're little character models with some sound bites. They don't have personality, they don't have dialogue, they don't have voice acting. They're very, very old school video game mascots, alright? There's nothing character about them. Now, when I first saw the Rabbids, you know, running around and going blah and talking in their own dumb made-up language and just destroying everything around them, the first thing that came to my mind is minions, and it really, really bothered me at first, but as the game progressed, it started to grow on me. They did a little more physical humor and comedy with how they move and stuff, and their little impersonation versions of the Mario characters, I think, are amusing. So I'd say the best thing about them is that in the character select screen, Rabbid Mario and Rabbid Yoshi had a contest to see who could do the most coke, and the prize that the winner got was to do a bunch of meth. Spawny, the little mini baby rabbit with the VR goggles, is really cute, but other than that, they just kind of follow along. They follow Mario, and then Mario follows Beepo, which is like a little Roomba with ears on it that just kind of skates along the ground. So when you're actually moving around in the world, you control Beepo, not Mario. And that took some getting used to, and it was really frustrating because Mario is the big colorful thing you see in the screen, and Beepo is this little tiny short thing that you don't see, so you feel like you're controlling Mario, but you're not, so it made it difficult to position some stuff. Beepo is the only one that's an actual character, and there is a lot of humor written into his dialogue, but I feel like maybe if it was voiced out loud instead of read to me, maybe it would have been funny, but I don't know. Text, humor jokes, just they didn't really work. But at the end of the day, you're saving Mushroom Kingdom again, so no originality there. But whatever, it's a Mario game, story's not really the point, so. Game runs in 30 FPS in handheld and docked mode, so either way the frame rate is about the same. There are a lot of freezes, like during an attack or something, the game will stop, it'll stutter for a second or so, but I wouldn't call it like a frame drop, I'd call it a freeze. In handheld mode, the game runs in 720p, and it looks blurry, it looks jaggedy, it looks bad, and I could not play this in handheld mode. So I stuck it in the dock, pulled out these thingy-majiggers, and stuck him in that god-awful controller grip that's actually downstairs. I don't have that with me. And when it is docked, it runs in 900p, so it's much better. And considering it is a Nintendo Switch, we know that this is not by any means high-end hardware technology. We know this does not have a Titan X in it. It's a Nintendo Switch, so I guess be reasonable with your expectations. Not that that's an excuse, just that that's the truth. Understand that no matter how well optimized the game is on Nintendo Switch, it's still running on Nintendo Switch. It can only look so good. But I think considering the kind of games Nintendo does tend to make, you know, these bright, colorful, cartoony things, I think they do a pretty good job with it, and I think it looks much better than Breath of the Wild. It's very colorful, it's very sleek, you know, the different world styles of the Mario game. You have your green plains area, you have your desert area, you have your snowy area, you have like a spooky haunted world, then you have like the lava world, and then there's like an underground blue crystal mine. That was the most beautiful place in the whole game. And the colors pop really well, and there's not too much clutter on screen. Like, you know when you play Call of Duty and you're like going through the map and there's always like garbage and trash and shit strewn everywhere just because you're always playing in like a back alley, and I'm like, that's just ugly looking. I like to have a sleek, clean looking game, and it does excel at that. And it's not short on any little effects or animations either, so when you shoot cover, it'll break apart, it'll crack a little bit. When Yoshi uses his gun, he like pulls it out of his mouth and eats it when he's done, you know, that kind of stuff. There's the big enemies, when you target them, they put up their hands to surrender from the side, and if you're shooting over, if there's like a friendly in the line of sight, they'll like duck down behind. Just little bitty things like that make the game feel more polished, feel like it has a budget, and it took some time to make it. And I would say some occasional freezing is really the only technical issue I had with the game. Other than that, it is a decent looking game, it is a well-running game, and 30 FPS is 30 FPS, but considering this is not some sci-fi arcade Twitch frantic first-person shooter, it's a turn-based game from a top-down perspective, I do think it's not that big of a deal. And obviously 60 FPS would be better, but if I had to have a game, if I had to pick a game to be in 30, it would be this one. So how the game works, this little hub world, and there's like these 4 different areas, and then each area is like a long linear path to like a boss, and each path, so you'll basically switch up between 2 kinds of play. You have puzzles, and then you have, you know, the battle, the combat, the firefights, you know, in the little grid space. So you switch off between those 2. If the puzzles are just thrown in there so that you have something different to do, so you kind of switch off so it doesn't, the firefighting, the same kind of gameplay doesn't grate on you too long, then I appreciate that. But the puzzles themselves I didn't find enjoyable. I wasn't like, oh, I solved the puzzle. I mean, this isn't Portal 2, this is not Talos Principle, this is not some high-profile thinking puzzle game. No, it's the kind of simple stuff that you would find in a Mario game. And you can kind of feel where the collaboration between Nintendo and Ubisoft is. I'm like, I bet Nintendo did the puzzles, and I bet Ubisoft did the combat. And credit where credit is due, the combat's pretty damn good. So you have 3 characters you control in the little grid. You must always have Mario, because he's the leader and he's in the title, and you must always have one Rabbid, who is in the title as well, because that's a collaboration, so it keeps you from having Mario, Luigi, and Peach, or Mario, Yoshi, and Peach. So the only character I found utterly useless was Rabbid Yoshi. So how a turn works, you have 3 different things. You have movement, you have your weapons, and then you have a specials, and you can do them in any order. You don't have to move, attack, special, which is great, because if you're already in a good position, you can attack and then run away. So I really appreciate the fact that they broke that up. I also really appreciate the fact that you can fast forward through the enemy turn, because sometimes there's like 9, 10, 11, 12 enemies on the other turn, and it can take minutes at a time to watch them all go through, so good on them, because that was a much needed feature. So this being a turn-based tactical squad combat game, movement and positioning is very, very important. So while you're moving, you can dash through enemies as you're moving. You can do a good deal of damage just in your movement phase, depending on which character. So Mario can dash an enemy, then he can go jump on one of his friends, and then pop on a different enemy, so he can hit 2 people. Rabbid freaking Mario can dash like 4 people, and they all explode when he does it. So something that bothered me is I found myself constantly accidentally tapping the tile next to the person instead of like the person, like if I wanted to dash somebody, so instead of dashing them and moving on, I would just move next to them, and that would be my movement turn. And like, wasted the movement turn. There, thanks for making me lose the game, essentially. So there was no kind of cancel button. It didn't happen that often, and part of that might have been because this left stick is kind of already. Now, adding a cancel button might not work because a lot of the attacks, a lot of the actions occur during the movement phase. So if you move into an enemy trap and you get like attacked, it's not really fair that you can undo that. So I understand that, just warning you to be careful when you're moving. And dude, this game is up to its ass in good mechanics. There's so much going on. You gotta worry about things like high ground, line of sight, flanking maneuvers. You have to be in a good position for next turn. You gotta make sure you're out of range when the enemy moves. You gotta be careful when using AoE and explosive tactics, because I've killed my own guys before. Depending on the game mode and the objective, sometimes it's not about maximizing damage and killing as many enemies. Or sorry, not killing. Rated E10, everybody. They're getting warped to a different dimension, or saved, or whatever. And sometimes it's about keeping one person safe, so you use other people as bait to draw enemies away. Sometimes it's about covering as much distance as possible, so you sacrifice one guy, leave him behind so that the other 2 can hop over onto another platform. It's about counting spaces, too, because there's big enemies that are melee only. They have like a giant tombstone or something. And if you shoot them, if you hit them, they will move 4 spaces towards you and attack you if they're in range. So you have to make sure you're at least 5 spaces away. And remember, they can move 4 spaces their next turn, so if you want to stay out of range, you gotta be 9 spaces away, so that 2 moves isn't enough. Or you can get in 3 different positions around them and have everybody shoot at them, so they get bounced between, they don't know which way to go, so they kind of get drawn back to where they were. So you can use that to your advantage and pull them where you want them to be, or you can just take a chance at a critical with Mario's honey weapons and just root them in place and then shoot as many times as you want. And if one of your teammates gets like iced or honeyed or some negative effect on them, Mario and a couple other characters can jump on them to clean that for them. So you gotta be careful who you move first and what you do in which order. Very tactical game. Thinking man's game. There's heals, there's shields, there's damage-specific shields. You can push enemies away from you, you can pull enemies towards you. It's about planning ahead and making the most out of your turns. Especially Hero Sight. Hero Sight is amazing. If you have Mario and Luigi and they're both upgraded correctly, you can attack the enemy 5 times as much in their turn as in your own. Hero sight is if an enemy takes a step into your line of sight, you'll take a shot at him, you'll pop him, and it's a guaranteed hit. And that's the meat of the game. There's counters for different attacks, there's counters for those counters, and there's counters for that, and it's just an extraordinarily well-designed game. The enemy variety and the boss designs are really, really great. The only enemy that bothers me are the little ghosts, because this game is so about movement and positioning and getting in specific places and being very careful and making sure you're covered from all angles, and then you just have the ghost that can teleport across the map wherever they want, and it kind of breaks that mechanic, so I really don't like them. And when you're moving around exploring the world, there's all these little collectible chests. Most of them are worthless. You need coins to buy weapons, so coins, I think this game does better than most Mario games in the fact that coins aren't just for a score, coins are used to then buy something you actually need. Coins and power orbs are the only things that matter, so occasionally you'll get a chest with 5 or 10 power orbs, but it happens so rare. Most of the time, it's like a 3D model, or a music track, or something stupid like that. You know, old school collectibles from way back when, because Nintendo thinks this is still 1995. To the point where I'm like, okay, if I want to listen to the soundtrack, I'm just gonna go on YouTube. I'm not gonna hunt down where in the game that soundtrack is and listen to it booted up in the game. And a lot of times the game's like, oh, now you can smash blocks, so you have to go back in the other areas and make sure you didn't miss anything. It's like, yeah, no. Alright, maybe if you're 100% completionist, you want to go back and destroy everything, cover the entire game. I didn't care. They did not make it worth it to me for the effort to go back and find everything. But overall, I think Nintendo and Ubisoft did a really good job here. You pair excellent, excellent combat with a very good-looking game, very sleek colors and all that, add a fantastic soundtrack. And you got yourself one damn good game, and I'm gonna give Mario & Rabbids an 8 out of 10. I love that sound.